Good morning and welcome to today's episode interview of the Food Junkies Food Addiction Summit. Today we have a colleague and friend all the way from Israel. We have Zippy. And so Zippy, will you go ahead and just introduce yourself for us so that our audience knows who you are?
Sure. So thank you, Molly and Clarissa, for inviting me to this awesome summit and the awesome work that you do. I just have to say hats off to you. My name is Zippy Livneh. I am a certified food addiction counselor and a registered nurse. I run a program called GPS to Sugar Free in Hebrew and in English. I have a BA in nursing and a master's in business management. I've also been certified by the InFact. I am sugar licensed, which is a tool for in-depth diagnosis of sugar addiction. I have been trained in 12 steps. And I myself am a recovered sugar addict who has over 20 years of experience. I've actually been studying on a scientific level this field for the last 10 years, even before there were any of these certifications. And I'm proud to say that I sit on the executive committee of the Food Addiction Institute, an international organization that promotes education and awareness of food addiction. And one of the things that I'm most proud of professionally is the project that I have done together with you, Molly, which is that we have gotten together the first international professional food addiction clinicians network, and we chair it together. And I think that's one of like my favorite babies that have been born in the last years. So yeah, and really my goal is to help people who feel that they do not have control over their eating habits or the way they eat or they eat, and it's a cause of suffering for them, and to help them and show them that there is a solution and there is a way to live free from sugar and food addiction.
Recovery is possible, right?
Absolutely, for everyone.
So, can you share a little bit about how food addiction has impacted your life, maybe your aha moment, and kind of how your personal journey merged into your professional journey?
Absolutely. So first of all, I really believe I was born addicted to sugar because from the time I can remember myself, and even before that, there was no amount of sugar in the world that could satisfy me. Anytime I had any form of candies or sweets or junk food, I had to finish whatever was in front of me. I always wanted more. My older brother and sister say they never wanted to hold my hand when I was little because they were always sticky. They called them Sippy's jam hands. So obviously I was like really in the sugar I had this fatal attraction to sugar from before I can even remember myself. But really, I think that it really took off as an addiction once I got married and I had children, small children. And they say that, that addiction is something that left unchecked will go and develop more. And that's exactly what happened. If it was something that I used to like sweets or ate a little too much, but I was never a fat kid or anything like that, then it came to a point where I was binging once in a while, and then it was more than once in a while. And at the height, at the height of my addiction, it was like I was never hungry. I was never full. I just felt like I have to eat something. And I could eat copious amounts of food and binging. And it was just, and here's the thing, I'm a nurse, right? And I really I was successful in just about every area of my life except being able to lose weight and control my eating. That was the one thing I was a complete failure at. And that was the one thing I wanted to succeed at most. And I just couldn't, I thought really something is truly wrong with me because I knew and this is the amazing thing. Like my clients tell me the exact same thing all the time, right? They say, I know what I need to do. The problem isn't the knowing. The problem is I can't seem to be able to do it. And just like I hear their stories, for me, it had a terrible impact on my self-esteem, on on how I felt about myself. And later on, when I stopped using sugar, right, and stopped eating it, I realized how much it also affected my mood and my personality and the way I behaved. So I think as on a person, I had two aha moments, right? On the personal level, the aha moment was when I was working with a doctor in a clinic in a clinic, and um, she's still a dear friend of mine. She's a very funny lady. I really liked her because she was very funny, and I liked her even more because she was fatter than me. And but she told me that as fat as she was, she had lost 20 kilos by treating her eating as an addiction. And that was like somebody lit a light bulb in my head. It was like, wow, that's me. Like I'm a junk food junkie. Yes, it's an addiction. And then I went to a 12-step program, and through the 12-step program, I recovered. And that was 24 years ago. I think it's closing on 25 soon. It's been a rocky road. It hasn't been smooth sailing the whole time, but I can say that for those 25 years, the huge majority of those days have been free from the obsession of sugar. And since I've started studying this subject on a scientific level and on a professional level, well, that's taken also my own personal recovery to a whole new level. Yeah.
So knowing you have all that personal experience, all that professional experience, how they've come together, can you just let our audience know, how do you work with clients? What have you found works best? What have you found does not work well? Yeah, let us know how you do that.
Sure. Well, first of all, I have to say that like one of my aha moments professionally was when I started learning from books and articles and medical articles, the research that has been done on the effect that sugar has on our brain and on our metabolism. And those are things that I think if I had known them as when I was recovering from my sugar addiction through 12 steps, right? I would have had much less slips and relapses and things than I had then. Um, and and that is one of the things that really truly is for me. First of all, I really truly believe that there is no one size that fits all. Some people do well with a very structured program where their food plan is weighed and measured, and they have to give you know accountability on a daily basis or what have you. Some people work very well with a much more looser and permissive structure where they can sort of build their own thing and do, what works for them and what doesn't work for them. But the one thing that I found that absolutely 100% doesn't work is the expectation to be 100% perfect all of the time. That does not work for anyone. And that is one of the things that I really truly work very, very hard with my clients. I think that is really one of the biggest problems of what I call the diet mentality, is that you're on or you're off, right? You're a good girl or you broke your diet, right? And if you broke your diet, then we go into the like what the heck syndrome, and then it starts eating. And this is one of the things that I really stress and teach my clients, is that if there is a slip or there is a relapse, right? How long it was, how much you ate, what happened is so much more important than the fact that if you didn't succeed one day or 1 minute or for 1 hour, it doesn't mean that you're a failure. And I always love to quote Bitten Janssen, who is my mentor and my dear, dear friend. And she always says that I'm much more interested in what your next bite will be than what your last bite was, right? So this is one of the things that I really, truly think that is important for everyone who is dealing with, by the way, any addiction, but certainly food addiction or sugar addiction, because it's so incipient, because it's right there in our face all the time. People have to treat relapses different than somebody who is addicted to heroin and relapses on drugs. It is not the same thing. And I think that this is something that's that I think is critical for people to understand regarding their recovery, right? So it doesn't mean it's okay. It means that you just have to be very soft on yourself and really be loving and forgiving and be honest, but also understand that we are dealing with probably the most difficult addiction to recover from.
Yeah, and that we can see it as an opportunity to learn and grow, right? Rather than a
Absolutely.
punitive thing. So
Absolutely. I took a professional training for 12 steps, and usually the teachers who teach this are recovered drug addicts, right? And he talked about relapse. The teacher, his name is Rafi. He talked about relapse and how it doesn't need to happen. You can, like, look, he's never relapsed for 25 years. And I said to him, just imagine, okay, that you decided, everybody around you does drugs, and you decided you're going off drugs. You're not using drugs anymore. And then you go to the office and there's lines of cocaine near the coffee pot. And then you go to you go into the your meeting at work, and there's little bowls of all these different kinds of pills of ecstasy and I don't know what, and joints all over the place, and everybody's smoking and taking pills. And what, Rafi, you don't want any, like not even one? Oh, that's way too like extreme. It's fun. It's like a little bit, get free, let the juices flow and your creative juices flow. And then, after an exhausting day like that, right? He goes to visit his mother, and she's like, Rafi, and his mother tells her how proud she is of him that he stopped doing drugs. And then she says to him, but maybe you just want a tiny little bit of this powder that I mixed, especially the kinds of drugs altogether that you loved so much. You don't want to just try a little one tiny sniff. And this is what we are up against as food addicts, right? And then tell me, like, that relapse doesn't happen. So I think that we really have to, we have to realize what we're up against. And it doesn't mean it needs to happen. And I do know some people who have back-to-back abstinence and have been living free, like really, haven't had any intake, but relapse is part of the disease of addiction. And I think we have to look at it in a much more forgiving and softer way. And yes, absolutely, Clarissa. I always say that when it comes to a slip or a relapse, there's 3 stages. The first is forgive yourself and love yourself. The second is look at it honestly and see what happened, not just with the slip itself, but what happened the day before, the week before. Like the slip didn't happen when you put the food in your mouth, right? What led up to that moment? And look at it objectively, out of curiosity and honestly, and then use it as an opportunity to grow and learn something from yourself, about yourself.
So was he open to, I'm just curious, your feedback, and did he kind of like appreciate it? Because I have experience with clients that 12-step approach can sometimes be a little bit more maybe unloving or compassionate than other approaches.
No.
Hey, fair, right? I think
Honestly,
it's
I mean,
the program.
intellectually he understood it, but on that level, I have experienced what you have as well, that like very, very rigid approach to relapse, which might serve a certain, like I said, there's no one, right? There's no one recipe. Some people need something very
Yep.
precise and very clear, what's okay and what, and that, if it, I always say, if it works for you, do it.
Yeah.
But if it's not working for you, then find something else.
Yeah. So, on that topic, what is something you believed early on in your career that after years of working with clients, after years of being in recovery, that you've conceptualized you need to be a little bit more flexible with?
Yeah, so I think that was one of the things, like relapses, right? Then whereas maybe it used to be that I would say, I had that attitude of, if somebody, maybe they're not surrendered enough, or they don't want it enough, or they're not you know what I mean, they haven't suffered enough. Today I think that's a bunch of hooey. Like, I'm sorry. I think, if somebody paid from their hard-earned money and is investing time and effort in a program, right? Then obviously they're very motivated and they want this very, very badly. And then the reasons for relapse are others. They aren't that. Sometimes it's just because, and this is something that I quote from something I heard on on the Food Junkie Summit, about that oh, I'm so bad at names, I'm sorry. But one of the professors that you interviewed talked about how addiction happens in the automatic parts of the brain, right? You can't unlearn addiction, just like you can't unlearn to ride a bike. So sometimes it's just and people will say to me, I don't know what happened. There was nothing doing. I just like all of a sudden found this cookie in my mouth, right? And it's because it's in those automatic places where it's really sometimes an unconscious thing. So we can consciously rewire our brain and make alternative pathways, right? And alternative solutions and alternatives ways to react or to act or to behave or whatever, or to eat. But we have to remember that those automatic unconscious pathways are there and be aware of them. And sometimes it's just enough of that little, like just not being aware enough, not, and so I think that really, I think that's probably one of the things that happened most, is that I really softened my attitude and my the way I relate to slips and relapses, also within myself and also for my clients. And it also stressed for me how important relapse prevention is, right? So that's another thing that probably I stress a lot more with my clients than I thought about myself when I was recovering from food addiction.
Yeah. So thinking about all of that, I'm just wondering, what do you think is, your unique offering to the field of, clinical food addiction work? What do you bring to the table that is unique to you?
Well, first of all, my religion and culture, right? Judaism is a very food-oriented tradition and religion, and also there are all the dietary laws that come with people who are traditional Jewish, like keeping kosher. And the holidays are not the same holidays as everybody else, and there are many holidays, very many. We have like 6 major holidays. Every 2 months, there's like a major holiday. Most of them last for more than one day. And any holiday in Judaism, the way that we celebrate is through food, right? Bread, wine, and a festive meal. So food is a huge part of the Jewish culture and tradition. And for somebody who has, who has this like, who is more stimulated by food and has a problem with addiction to these rich and sugary, starchy foods, well, that can be a real challenge, right? And then it takes many times and in that way, my experience and my knowledge of being traditional Jewish myself and keeping kosher myself and the holidays myself and being religious. So I have a deep knowledge and lots of experience of how to navigate through all those challenges that the Jewish tradition can bring. So that's one of the things that really I can bring to a unique population. The other thing is that I find that a lot of programs are more emotional and trauma based. Whereas maybe it's because I'm a nurse and I'm like a kind of like to geek out on the science. I don't know, but I really do believe that food is the medication, and the food itself. And sometimes I find that, and that's okay. I think, there's 12-step programs, they say it's not about what you eat, it's about what's eating you. No, it's both. It's also about what you eat. It's definitely about what you eat and how you eat it and when you eat it and in what amount you eat it and whatever it is. So I think that I am not, I think that food is a big part of our recovery program. We need to talk about food. We need to discuss food plans and also help clients to make their own individualized food plan that's good for them. I really do believe that once a person goes through that biochemical repair, right? What Beaton Janssen calls the biochemical repair of their brain, of their metabolism and body, then their body will tell them what's good for it or not. If a low carb is good or not, if maybe plant-based is good or not, if there's some kind of mix, in the middle, as long as if you're eating real food, your body's going to tell you what's good for it and what isn't. And what I do is I teach my clients to listen to that, right? We have the initial phase of the detox and the biochemical repair, and then learn to build your own personalized nutritional food plan that works for you. Just listen to your body, listen to your brain, be aware, when you're and then, and as Clarissa said, learn from your mistakes, and there will be, so and then it's work. So what I like to say is that I think there's a hierarchy in sugar and food addiction recovery. The first is the addiction itself, right? When you're thinking about how to build your food plan, how do you build your recovery, what you do, where your priorities lie, the priority is the addiction, right? There's some foods that are really super healthy, wonderful foods, but if I'm addicted to them, if I can't eat them like a lady, right? If I can't control, if every single time I eat more than I intended to, or I find myself like thinking about it too much, I'm too busy with it, right? Not just when I'm eating it, but before or after, whatever it is, then that food is not healthy for me. So the addiction comes first. After the addiction comes the metabolic health, right? If it's real, probably it'll be metabolically healthy, not necessarily for you. It depends a lot of times on the person's history, their physical history, their diet history, their genetic history, so you build yourself a plan that's metabolically healthy for you. Right here, I'm definitely consider myself a student of Dr. Robert Lustig, right? Feed the gut, protect the liver, totally into that, totally agree with that. And the third thing, right, is the weight loss. And here again, I don't think it's something we should ignore. I don't think it has to be the ultimate goal and aim. But, when I was 15 kilograms heavier than I am now, which is what, like 35, 40 pounds, something like that, I don't know. That weight loss was really, really important to me. And I really, really enjoy being the same size clothes for the last 10 years. It's a definite something that's important to me, and I think that it shouldn't be ignored, and it needs to be addressed because it's something that's important for people, but it's not the most important thing, right? That's like the third thing in the hierarchy. And then of course you have all so finding alternative solutions to living that are not food-based. So that's basically, that goes on the side. That's not part of that hierarchy, but that goes, of course, as like something that has to be. But I always tell people, like, when it comes to the emotional eating or trauma and things like that, definitely people who have that emotional component to their addiction, it needs to be addressed. But it will be addressed and it will be treated much, much better and in a much more effective way if it's done on a clean brain, right? On like clear thinking. Because I know when I eat sugar, I'm a nutcase. I'm mad, like I'm crazy. And I don't think logically. So that's how I see. So I always say there's a horse and there's a cart. The horse is the food. The cart is living your life and finding alternative solutions to emotions and stress and fatigue and celebration that are not food, that food is not the way to do it.
So then in those clients that you see who do really well in recovery, I imagine those things are in their recovery program. What else would you notice about those individuals that they do that you think is, kind of a key to success?
I think the key component would be commitment. Those who are really committed to their recovery and put it as their first priority in their life, they are the ones who do best. Because even if they do like screw up, right, they'll learn what to do the next time, and there will be a next time. But the people who just see it as another diet program and here like are just waiting to fail at it, just like they did every other diet program, are usually the ones who will not, or are looking for a quick fix. There are no quick fixes. My flagship program is like well, in Hebrew, I do 8-week group programs. In English, I do 10-week personalized programs, right? But it's not like some people say like 10 weeks, that's it, or 8 weeks, that's it. Well, that's not, of course, that's not it. So you have the rest of your life to live, buddy, like, so I can teach you what to do, right? I can teach you how. And I can teach you how in 8 weeks. I can teach you how in 10 weeks. Sometimes I'll have clients, I can teach them how in like 3 or 4 weeks. It depends. And sometimes they need 3 or 4 months. That's okay too. Everybody has their own rate, right? But once you learn the how, then really it's a matter of commitment. Many people need a support system in order to stay committed and to stay really, many people do, many people don't. Sometimes many people do not need a group therapy setting like type of or group support, and they do just fine on their own. And usually those people like that, I will recommend to them to schedule in their routine once a month, bi-weekly, once a week, some kind of meeting where they are accountable, where there is some kind of support, be it professional or with a friend or whatever it is. But I think it's really something that's really, really hard to do 100% on your own. But I think that it's a matter of commitment and priority. When I finally was able to not just understand here, but internalize that when I put myself first and my recovery first, I'm the best mother I can be, I'm the best wife I can be, I'm the best employee I can be, or employer that I can be, I'm the best friend that I can be, right? When I understood that putting myself first and my commitment to my recovery before anything else, basically I was giving my best to those that I want to give to them, right? When I really internalized that and understood that and behaved accordingly, that was when my recovery really, that is the secret ingredient to long-term recovery. Then you'll figure it out. You'll figure out what you need to do.
Yeah, I think I don't think I could have said that any better. Thank you, Zippy. That was great. So you've been on the podcast, so you've answered our signature question. So I wanted to shake it up just a bit. And I wanted to know, what did you need to hear when you were first starting your recovery journey?
I needed to hear that it wasn't my fault, that it wasn't because I was weak-willed and lacked self-discipline. And I think that's also like when I heard that in the 12-step rooms, like when they called the addiction a disease and said it's not, and I think really that, Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob and like, all the founders of Alcoholics Anonymous, they were really before their time. And I think the science has pretty much backed up what they said, way back then, that I'm just different. I'm not better or worse than anybody else. My brain works differently and reacts. I react differently to sugary, starchy, hyper-processed foods than my sister does, who's not addicted. And like she can take a bite of something and like push it away and she's done, right? Let's order dessert. I had some dessert, finished with the dessert, goodbye. And like me, that's like, it wouldn't be like that. It's like, right? I'm like on the way to the restaurant, I'm thinking about the dessert already. Who cares about what they're ordering, So I realized when I realized that it's not that I'm less, I'm just different. But I have to accept that really on a basic. I think for me, that was probably one of the most freeing moments that I had. And also really coming into a room of people and understanding that I'm not alone in this. There are people who suffer just as badly and do just as much crazy shit and even more, excuse me, than I did. Like, it's just like, and that there's hope, that there's a solution. Like, I really, that probably for me was the thing, that it's not about the weight loss. The weight loss will come as a result of, and that it's not because I'm, it's not because I'm bad or weak or screwed up. It's just because I have an addicted brain. My brain, that's it. That's how I am. I think that was probably my most freeing moment.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so true. It's about finding your people, right? That you can sit in the room and be like, oh, yeah, me too. Oh, yeah. Oh, want to hear this? I did this. That was wild, right? It's nothing like
Right.
that feeling whatsoever.
I always tell, there's a lot of shame involved in, and I think in food even more, well, I won't say more, in any addiction, there's a ton of shame. But somehow society expects us to eat moderately while at the same time being bombarded by addictive sugary foods and being cued and stimulated to eat them 24/7. Like, I saw this uh, movie that a journalist did, like a documentary on body image, and all these teenage 12-year-old girls who, like, think they need to be like, these models and feel bad about their body even though they're beautiful and they have like fine bodies, whatever. And one of the things that really I was sorry about was they only addressed the emotional component of it. And I said, like, here, I know, like in North America there's Sweet 16, right? Well, here it's when girls are 12 there's a bat mitzvah, and boys when they're 13 there's a bar mitzvah. And I say, like, yeah, but here they are, like, telling this girl to look like a model, but at her bat mitzvah party, right, the table is like practically collapsing from cookies and cakes and chocolate and popcorn and sugary drinks, and and there's like not a vegetable in sight. Like maybe there'll be a few carrots there for, like, and they expect her to be like a model, and yet, like, here, and yet, like, at these parties it's just like one huge binge party. Like, no wonder these people are very, very confused and screwed up when it comes to food and body image. And nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about how, and this is one of my favorite subjects, but nobody talks about really how our environment is causing, our nutritional environment is causing so much harm and is so hard to live with. I mean, people say giving up sugar is extreme, right? Because that's what everybody said, like, what? Right? And yet people didn't eat like we do, but the way we eat today, with the way everybody eats today, that's what's extreme. Human beings did not eat like that, and until 100 years ago, right? For 10,000 years that we've been like cultivating our food, people have not eaten like that. So
Yeah, there was a time not that long ago in our history when sugar was a spice, not a main ingredient, with 262 names and 262 different ways it shows up in our food. So,
right, and it
yeah.
was an expensive spice.
Yes. Yes. So, well, we just appreciate you so much for being here with us today, Zippy. You know, we could go on and on and on with you, and certainly we'll have you back for more conversations. Just thank you so much for being here. Can you just let our audience know how they can find you? And we'll make sure to put it in the show notes for this as well. But I'm sure there are English speaking people as well who would be interested in working with you. So if you could let us know
Or
that information.
Absolutely. So my English website is right now being under construction, so you can't find me there really that well. But you can find me on Facebook, Zippy Livneh, GPS to Sugar Free. That's the name of my program. You can also find me on YouTube. I have a channel. Please subscribe to it, like it, share it. I go live every single week on my Facebook and YouTube channel, so you can get lots of really, really great content there. You can get me through my email, which I will give to Molly, and you can please, let it out. And that would probably be the best three, and Instagram as well. But the best three avenues would probably be Facebook, YouTube, and my email.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Zippy.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It really, truly, truly is an honor. And I just really want to tell you guys that just keep doing the awesome, awesome work that you and Vera are doing together. And you have my total, total respect. So thank you so much for what you
Thank
give to
you.
us.
Thank you. And you keep doing your work as well, because we need people all over the world. As we know, this disease does not discriminate. So we
Absolutely.
appreciate you.